Converted man. Okay, did Dave commit an ad hominem against James Stewart? Now, I attempted to do a live analysis, and that didn't work. I wasn't good at it. I was distracted with my own internal dialogue that I was saying out loud and chat and thinking things out loud. And I was like, okay, well, it's like he did these things, and like, and I was. But I really find that the only way to do a proper analysis for me is it's not live. So I listened to both openings, and I listened to some of this not enough quotes in the world debate, and the answer is yes. Dave absolutely commits an ad hominem. Uh, I had thought, previously I was, when I was talking out loud to myself, I thought, well, he's got some stuff about James in there. He references a few things, so maybe it's not an ad hominem because he's establishing, some facts about James that we need to know, and this is going to lead to something. This is, just an intro, and then he's going to have an actual argumentation. But no, the intro was meant for this particular thing. The intro was meant to be their opening argumentation, and then they were supposed to cross-examine each other. Oh, that changes everything. The intro is no longer just like an intro where you say thanks, and here's what we're gonna do and outline it. No, it's just that's the argument. That whole argument is that. So that changes everything. So yes, the answer is yes, and I was wrong last time. And hey, it's okay to be wrong, And I was defending myself in the comments. I'm like, no, I think I'm right, And I was like, well, then I started to hedge my bets because I was like, well, maybe I could be wrong, I'll think about it and I'll analyze it and I'll get back to you, some people, and and so yeah, I thought there was going to be more to this debate than just two intros and then go right into a cross examination. Cross examination, which devolved into Tor yelling at Dave and Dave pulling up papers, and that I guess that's about it. I mean, there's not really much more that I think happens beyond that. So a bit of commentary that I'll do on it. First, Dave got a gift, and this is just me, my own personal take. I know different people receive gifts in different ways, but when I get a gift, I like when the person responds appropriately. If it had been me, I would have said, "Wow, thank you." I would have read what it, because it said something on it. Would have read what it said out loud to the audience and shown the audience it, and then I would have said it in a way that could be seen by the audience at all time. Like, and there was a chalkboard right behind them, so he could have used that as a stand. Not anything to do with the debate itself, but just things I would have done as a personal thing. Yes, you think the guy. Yes, the guy's a fraud, a con artist. He said bad things about you, but you can still have that aura of civilness there. So Tor says that there's this problem with the anti-Muir pure molecules. That's a major hurdle, but he conceded it. So that was interesting. Apparently conceding an entire thing that he thinks is a major hurdle for whatever reason. He thinks there's not enough time for that. So that's interesting. He says that there's 5 things that we couldn't solve. He does admit to being religious, but he says that doesn't apply in his official lectures and that it's never coupled with his scientific research. That might be, and hopefully that's true. I would expect that it wouldn't appear in any publications that he's done. He mentions the time of the gaps, which I've heard before from creationists. It's unclear whether I think that he does agree with the age of the Earth, so I don't think that he's like saying the Earth is young here. He does say that the topic is about early cell development and not about him. So maybe Tor kind of already knew that it could be made about him going in. So, anyways, he said that it's hard to interpret the data, and that's okay. Yeah, this is difficult data to understand for the layperson, but not for experts in the field. Then he defined what a test was, which was decent enough. He said that we're seeking a valid way that life might have originated. He wanted to show the data. And then he said that hyping words is a problem in scientific research papers, which it may or may not be. Then Dave proceeds to have a formal fallacy to shift the topic to that. No, we're here to attack James and not the topic at hand. Then he insults the audience and says, anyone who thinks this isn't relevant is delusional. That's just a bad form. Yeah, that's just, don't do that. Then he says that, Tor's opinions are relevant because X, Y, and Z, which is nothing more than an ad hominem. He says he's only had 5 papers published, which could maybe be relevant, but, And then he points out a thing his opponent does when he said that his opponent also hypes his papers up. But even if that's true, it's nothing more than a 2Q, or it's pointing out that he's a hypocrite. But that's not a logical fallacy. So him saying, hey, look, hyping words has become a problem in scientific research papers. And maybe he's hyping his own papers because it's become a trend and he notices that it's a problem. So, but it's kind of a side topic. It's not anything that either one should have brought up, to be honest. But then there's just kind of the guy yells at him and Dave shows him some papers, and that's it. That's what this was. And what a shame, because, it's not going to happen again. I doubt very much that Tor will agree ever to talk to Dave again. I don't know the motivations of Dave. I don't know, whatever. But I've seen Dave's videos, and I've seen him do this exact sort of thing in a video. This is like a Dave video where he says, Tor's this, that, and the other thing. And he, points out he's a fraud, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, all that's fine for a YouTube video and for pointing out and criticizing the person and all that. And then usually in Dave's videos, then he proceeds to show the research and not just show the paper, but show, the meat and potatoes of it and all that. And so for this live debate, maybe he thought going in, this is my chance to expose this guy to his own audience as the fraud he is. But the way that you do that is to focus on the data and put in a couple jibes here and there, maybe, but subtle. You say you could, maybe you could ask him as part of a Q&A section of the debate, why have you insulted these people, or why did you insult me? Why, let's not do that. Let's have this, be, why have you only published 5 papers? Maybe that's in this field. If Tor wanted to win this discussion, then he would just publish on the subject in scientific peer-reviewed papers, and he would make his case there, and that's how he would actually win. Whatever his issue is, he wants this one thing shown in some science to do this one particular thing, and that seems to be his personal linchpin. And maybe we've done it, maybe we haven't. I have no idea. Maybe he's asking for something unreasonable. Who knows? We didn't get anything, as far as I can tell, from Dave. Yes, you get a lot of papers, and my complaint for Tor, or whoever it is that manages his YouTube, because probably somebody else, it's not. Tor probably has people running his stuff for him at this point in time, because he's got stuff to do, whatever. But whoever's just running the YouTube channel of Tor did not put all the scientific papers that Dave lists in the citations. And I think that is relevant to the debate, and that should have been done. So there's a lot to complain about on Tor's side of things as well. Tor just shouting at Dave is not professional. And Dave insulting Tor is not professional either. Both of these ought to put on that air. Dave is going in front of an audience he knows is going to be hostile to him. Why not just prepare with the relevant data? Tor put up a chemistry on the board that I don't understand, and Dave said, "I don't need the board." Well, you should have used the board and show him whatever it is that you wanted to show him. And if you're not qualified to do that, you should have brought somebody with you that is qualified to do that. And really, this might come down to how it was set up. It might come down to what was agreed upon pre-debate or whatever. I don't know. But why it wasn't made more clear what it was that is going to be the focus. Here's what I want you to show me is X. Then, and if that wasn't made clear, then okay, fine. Because there are things that Dave has in these papers that Tor dismisses because it's not the thing he's looking for. And Dave says, well, you're moving the goalpost, which it's unclear to me whether he is or isn't moving the goalpost, because the whole thing's a mess at that point. They're yelling, insults, and it's no longer a debate. It's no longer an information exchange, and I gain no new knowledge. I don't learn anything from this. I do learn from Dave's videos typically. And then I enjoy the popcorn moment of, let's also point out that Tor is, being wrong. That's great in a YouTube video, not in a debate setting. So how did it go so wrong? I don't know. I can't answer that question. Now, how did I go so wrong in my analysis? Because that's all that matters to me is me. I matter, Well, I don't know. I can only say that I think doing a live analysis of anything, for me, doesn't work. I get in my own way. I step on myself. I'm talking out loud. I do that offline, and it's, and then I was distracted by chat and all this. And I was like, okay, well, he skims the thing. And I remember saying, like, he's on that razor edge. And I remember even saying, he committed a formal fallacy. That's weird. I'm like, okay, maybe there's something that led to that. And, because I was only looking at Dave's thing, and I was like, okay, this is going to lead somewhere. And, I was saying I was being hard on him. Actually, I don't think I was being hard on him. I think I was being rather easy on him. But after looking at the thing in context, I have to conclude that, Dave committed an ad hominem. Now, what does that mean? Well, what it means is we have to be skeptical of Dave's position. But what is Dave's position? The answer of the topic question is not addressed at all by Dave. So that's not in that opening statement at any rate. Later on, he brings up those scientific papers and whatnot that do address the question at hand to some degree. Certainly it does say, look, we do know about origin of life stuff. Here are many papers that we have. So the answer to the question is, are we clueless on origin of life? Is no. Obviously, we have a lot of data on it. Do we have this particular data? Maybe not. But we do know X, Y, and Z about it. So therefore, saying that we're clueless doesn't follow. That's your opening statement. That's your opening argumentation. Then you go into the question. You go into the information exchange, and Tor yelling. I would have said, "Hold on, whoa, dude! You don't need to yell. We're on microphones. Let's keep this calm." But I suspect he might not have yelled had Dave not done the whole, insulting him, which is fine. Dave can insult him all he wants, but it's not relevant to the debate. And pointing out that he's fraud, although it's true, Tor is a fraud. He is, he is doing pseudoscience to some degree, at least on his YouTube videos. He doesn't publish any of it because it won't get published. He writes stuff on his blog, and he makes speeches and does whatever. And he says he doesn't do religion and science together, but, well, when you admit that you're putting the Bible above the science, then at some level you're probably letting that influence your your results. But that doesn't appear in any actual publications that he does, because it wouldn't work in a scientific paper. So you could probably get away with it in lectures and whatnot, and nobody would notice. But I don't think he does. I mean, somebody somewhere would have complained about him if he's doing stuff in university. So, yeah, Dave just didn't succeed in the topic of the debate to demonstrate that we are not clueless about the origin of life research. That was the question. It's an obvious win at that point. You just go, here, look at all this, see all these papers. There you go. We're not clueless. We know some things, so we're not therefore clueless. Now, Tor did define clueless in a very specific manner, and that's an interesting steel man to go after if you had known that before the debate started, if you knew what he means by clueless, because typically we mean clueless to be that we don't know anything about it at all. So I think there might be some equivocation going on there, but it looks to the audience and to a skeptic, jaded person like me that Tor knew what he was doing and that Dave had nothing to offer. And that's a bad look, because I know that the science is there to some degree, and I didn't learn what that was. And I couldn't learn it because I can't listen to Tor yell. That's no fun. I'm not going to learn anything from that. It's not an enjoyable experience. And Dave's pulling out all these scientific papers and showing the things that are relevant, I guess, but they're not discussing these things, and I have no idea what they're talking about. So they're not making it accessible to the layman, and so that's kind of a mess there. There is an error and a hint to conspiracy in Tor's speech. He mentions there's a Twitter post that somebody did where he says that origin of life research is a sham or a fraud. And it's like, well, if that's true, then you could prove that. There's some way to demonstrably prove that, and you could do that with a couple of different scientific papers that you could publish. If you couldn't get them published in Nature or wherever, you could get them published somewhere, and you could do an expose or something on it, and you could show that that's true. So if you had evidence to that, then you could show it. That Tor does seem to be doing what he's doing because of his faith. He's saying no to the origin of life stuff because he thinks God did it, not because the science isn't there necessarily. And I think that that's the angle that Dave was going at, is that the reason that Tor is doing it this way is because Tor believes God did it, so that any answer we did provide, even if we provided him with the exact thing that he's looking for, won't matter for Tor. But you don't frame it that way for the debate. You just don't. That's a good YouTube video, but it's not a proper debate. And so, well, hey, I've messed up in debates too. I've made informal fallacies in at least one debate. And I've used the tactic of reducto ad absurdum in a different debate, and I don't know whether that was a good tactic to use or not. But I've tried to be professional, and I've tried not to insult my opponents when doing debates. There's been times I'm sure that I've failed that. So it's not that big of a deal in that sense. There'll be somebody else that comes along that gives the science to people and highlights the important facts of the matter. Will Tor's audience ever see or hear that? Who knows? That's the missed opportunity here. Is because Dave was in front of this audience of, potential Tor supporters. So if he presented what evidence there was, yes, the scientific papers are good to have, but also the core meat in those papers and talk about that and how that works. And Tor said, well, that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. And you could have been like, well, no, it is relevant because it's addressing that we do know some stuff, but that's not what happens. So it is what it is. Um, how could this be done better? Well, I would think that what maybe you want to do if you're going to get a chance to debate somebody alive is to get a number of people to help you with your opening argument, especially if it's going to be something like this where you have a specific question to ask, but you're only going to be given 10 minutes for an opening, and then you're going to go into uh, information exchange, which is what they were doing, where they're, well, supposedly what they were doing was information exchange, where they're saying, here's information, and you're trying to change that back and forth, but that didn't happen. So, and the moderator didn't step in that I noticed, at least from what I watched. Maybe he does later, but it just, you take steps to ensure that it's going to be a fair debate beforehand and that you're properly prepared and that other people besides yourself have looked at your argument to confirm that it's valid. Oh man, excuse me. What's important is we don't wrap ourselves up with the ideology or non-ideology or side that we're part of. I'm a skeptic. I'm an atheist. I know that science is doing what it does. And I am fine with science figuring out whatever the bleep it figures out in regards to the origin of life. If it turns out that science finds, hey, no, look, it turns out here's God. Oh, okay, then that's what it is. I don't care. It's not going to bother me. It's just going to be interesting to learn that. If it turns out we're all aliens, okay, fine, then that's what happens. Whatever. And I'm satisfied with whatever that outcome is. Whereas the faithful have a dedicated outcome that they're hoping to achieve, perhaps. They want it to be God in the end. And, well, maybe God can't be found via science. Maybe you will find all the naturalistic explanations and you will simply say, well, fine, but God did all of that. And I wouldn't have a problem with that, because if there's a God, then it did things in the way that things have been done, unless you want to posit some sort of God that's okay with lying to people or misdirecting us or something like that, which could be a conception of God that somebody holds, a trickster God or something like that. This shouldn't be a debate about religion versus science. It should have been a debate on science versus and versus pseudoscience, if anything. Yes, your opponent is a preacher, is a fraud, is etc. But you've got to do the argument, and that means staying on the topic. You didn't do that. So that means that we don't have empirical evidence or people list or a valid and sound argument from Dave's side. What about James' side? Well, James says that there's problems. There might be, but that doesn't necessarily mean we don't know anything. I think there's a possible equivocation of saying clueless, but defining clueless in a specific way that James does, that we commonly wouldn't view the word clueless to mean. And so you could have phrased the sentence in the question in a way that avoids equivocation, but of course it would be a long question, be like, do we not know about this one, how these two things come together to form the next thing, whatever the chemical thing was that he talks about? That could have been the name of the question, but obviously that's, not necessarily going to be good for clicks and views, and that's hype and all this. And yeah, there might be that problem of maybe that is a problem. And it might be a problem in certain papers where they're using hype language or to get attention from media so that then they get some extra funding, because the public becomes aware of this research and maybe will fund them because they always need funding. And science can be kind of stiff and to some people, and to some people it can be boring. And if you don't understand it, well, then it's probably going to be boring, or it might be boring if you can't understand it. I find it interesting even when I don't understand it. I'd rather understand it, though. I think that we know a lot about origin of life. We might not know everything. We know a lot of things. I don't think we're clueless in the generic version of clueless. The one question that Tor had, I don't know that was actually addressed or answered. Maybe there is an answer to it, and maybe Dave or somebody else will produce the video that shows the exact answer to that question. Maybe that should have been the question of the debate rather than saying what the phrase of the debate was, which is the framing was, are we clueless on the origins of life? Obviously, we're not clueless, unless you equivocate what clueless is to a different definition that nobody would ever use. So that means that Tor doesn't have a valid argument or a sound one. And he doesn't have any empirical evidence or repeatable test either, which means we have to be skeptical of both sides. Okay, that's just their intro. What about the stuff they do? Well, James is yelling at Dave, and Dave is pulling up what things, and it's like, I can't follow this. I can't analyze this. There's nothing to analyze. It's just, this is nothing burger going on, and it's beyond my field because they're talking scientific stuff that I have no clue about, so I can't properly analyze it because I don't know who's wrong or right about whatever. So I'll have to leave that to somebody else. But I can say that, given what I do know, if we are indeed skeptical of both of their positions, which is the conclusion I would reach after this analysis, then, well, what was the point of the debate? All debate, I think, has a purpose and a point to it, even when the debate goes wrong, because we learn something from it. And that's very important. We can make mistakes. It's okay. We can forgive Dave of this colossal error. We can forgive Tor of his yelling and his behavior as well. And to some extent, it's understandable. And we can give them a second chance, and maybe they will get together and have another actual debate where they actually debate the actual thing. I don't know. Maybe not. Probably not. I wouldn't bet on it. And we learned something. We all learned something from it. We learned how not to do things. And that's something. That's not nothing. That is something. This tactic was attempted, and this tactic didn't work. So we're not going to use that tactic in the future. And it's like, well, maybe we already knew that. Well, maybe we did. Maybe we didn't. Maybe we needed to be reminded. Who knows? And that's how I view different debates, as a function of a tool that, first, of course, they're public, so people hear them. You have a wide audience. You're getting your message out there. And so they're important in that respect. And that's where I guess that Dave thought, I need to expose fraud in front of his audience so that they know he's a fraud. Maybe that's what he thought going in. And he attempted to do so, but that's not, maybe it wasn't the time and place for it. I don't know. I don't think it was, but that's my view, and it has nothing to do with the analysis. The analysis, yeah, he committed a fallacy. So did Tor, and so we're skeptical of both sides, and we don't know what the answer to the question is based on this debate on its own. Outside of the debate, we absolutely could answer the question, but using formal logic's rules, we would be skeptical of both sides, and that would be that. What a mess. So, it's important to learn informal logic so that we can help each other to spot fallacies. And it's important to know that so that we ourselves can spot those fallacies. And it's important to be open to being wrong, which I am, hopefully. And it's also important to know that we can say that, yeah, of course God, whatever, didn't do it. Or, of course God did do it. We can say that, but we need to support that if we're saying that. If we're saying no to God, then we need to support that. If we're saying yes to God, we need to support that. If we're saying, I don't know, but it seems to be natural, that seems to be the most plausible possible answer. Seems consistent with everything else that we've ever looked into as a species. So if we extrapolate backwards from that and say whatever the origin of life is, it's natural, and you keep going back and go, what about the universe? You go, well, that's natural too. And you go, well, then what about God? It's like, well, there's a God, then it can't be anything but natural. And so that would negate several ideas of God right there. That would have been a good argument to make as well if the topic was about God, which it's not. But if you believe in God, you shouldn't think that you have to deny abiogenesis, origin of life stuff because God. We should be able to accept whatever the science says and to view God as being the thing that did it that way, if you want to believe in a God, or if you do believe in a God, rather than fight tooth and nail and say, no, the earth is 6,000 years old. No, it's 10,000 years old. No, evolution didn't happen. No, we don't know anything about abiogenesis. La, la, la. I'm plugging my ears because I don't want to hear it because it's ruining my idea of God. No, look, if you're in a supposed relationship with God and God's a real thing, well, have you ever been in another relationship? Yeah, right. Hopefully, yes. You know, we all have. Hopefully, at some point, even if it's a familiar relationship with a family member or a friend or not romantic. Okay, can you discover something new about that person? Yes, you can. Right. So why would it be that you can't possibly find out something new about God? And I think that some people that believe in God worship their book or worship the interpretation of that book regarding God. And they're not looking for the actual God that really exists, if one did exist out there. They're saying this is the God that I know is true because that's the one I believe is true. But it's like, well, you could be slightly wrong about that. Maybe you're supposed to look at the world and figure out how God did all this stuff. But by saying, no, 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 I'm going to be dogmatic, you start worshiping a fake God. And the creationists do this. They make their God impossible because they say, our God made the world in 6,000, or made the world in 7 days. Our God made the universe 7 or 6,000 years ago, or 7,000 or 10,000 years ago, whatever it is. And it's like, well, then your God doesn't exist because that didn't happen. And we know that for sure without a doubt. And so then they start doing all these pointless debates that mess with the good science that's being done out there, that's the real stuff, that's reality, and learning how things really work. That's very useful for us to know as a species, because they think that denying aspects of reality makes their God plausible. It's like, no, your God's impossible. You've made your God impossible. You've said 1 + 1 = 1,000,000, and if that's false, then my God is false. Well, guess what? Then your God's false. Why are you doing that? Why not just accept it? Well, because then that means I have to change my view on God. Well, what would be so terrible about that? Why is that so big of a deal? You learned something new about this God that you thought that God did it one way. No, it did it a different way. oh, okay, cool. And maybe you have legitimate scientific questions. And fair enough. Educate yourself on that subject and go explore the science that there is, and then publish your papers on it and fight the battle in the proper way. Don't do it the way James Tour is doing it, where he's published, I think, 5 papers in Origin of Life. If he really had something that was conclusive evidence against X, Y, or Z, then he should publish that as a paper. Whatever that is. If he wants to expose it as a fraud, then he should be able to do that easily. Not on YouTube, not on a blog, but in the relevant field. And unless and until he does that, we should be skeptical that he has any evidence like that. And maybe you want to say, well, the problem is that the status quo will never accept a paper like that exposes it. Oh, yeah, they would. Absolutely, they would. But if you believe that, then you'd have to demonstrate that that's true too, which nobody has done to my knowledge. Both sides have failed. Well, that leaves us back to square one. That's a good place to be. It's a good place to start. And the importance of doing analysis, for me, logical analysis, there's a limit to informal logic. And there's an importance to it. And I'll speak on the importance of it. It lets me know whether or not I should do deeper research into the claim being made. And it lets me know whether or not I should believe that something is true or even plausibly true. It's a time saver. But the limit of informal logic is that it can't seem to produce new information, as far as I know. There isn't an argument that you could be presented with that then you could actually analyze that will give you new information, because in order to be able to analyze it, you have to understand what it's talking about. Like I said, I can't analyze where they're yelling back and forth at each other because they're doing scientific stuff that I don't know that much. I don't know enough about. I don't know like anything about. So I can't analyze it for logical fallacies. I can't tell you what fallacies they made unless it's blatantly clear. Yelling's not a logical fallacy. It's just bad form, But either the light is on or off. That's a dichotomy. The light's not off, so therefore the light's on. It's valid in sound, etc. But you don't know if the light's on or off unless you can see the damn light. The problem here is Dave should have had that light there to examine so that Tor had nothing to say in response. Dave had some papers that alluded to the light, perhaps, but didn't have the exact light that Tor wanted to talk about. And that might be a fault of Tor. It might be a fault of the way that the debate was set up. It might be a fault of Dave. It might be a fault of the people that organized it. It might be everybody's fault. I don't know. But we can acknowledge when our own group fails, and we should do so. We have to do so. And we also have to be careful that we're not doing this group thing. And I know we humans, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We got to be aware that we're doing it, though. We got to be careful about it. Your team is team blue and we're team red, and you're right and we're wrong. Woo, yeah. See, pwned them. Yeah. And it's like, look, let's not do that. We got to keep each other sharp. And it's not fun when people tell you that you're wrong. I speak from experience because I've been wrong plenty. But we have to learn to be okay with being wrong, and we have to accept the possibility that we could be wrong. So could we be wrong about origin of life stuff? I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? I have no idea. I'm not the people involved in that. Bringing some of those people along might have been a great thing too. that could have been something that was organized. Say, okay, you want to debate me, fair enough, but let's hold off on that. How about this? I'll get all these people together to come and talk, and we'll do that, and they'll present whatever it is, blah blah blah, that they have, and there you go. And you can ask them directly about this stuff, and maybe during that they can say, I don't like that you called me a liar straight to the guy's face. That wouldn't be an ad hominem because it wouldn't be part of the debate. It could be part of a thing that they say to each other to settle their differences as civilized people. But we didn't do that. So, oh well, whatever. That's okay. Next time, somebody somewhere will do it better, and hopefully we'll do it in a way that educates us all on the matter at hand. That day is not today. So hopefully I have provided something for you in this analysis and my own thoughts on the matter, and it being open and keeping my other video up where I was like, yeah, no, he didn't do it. No, I was wrong, past self. Hey, past self, you were wrong. And I'm sure people are going to disagree with me. No, he didn't commit the ad hominem. No. Yes, he did. He did. He did. He just did. He did. There's no way around it. He did. He didn't attack the argument. He alluded to attacking the argument a couple of times, but I can't count that. He did it once. That's more than enough. How many times he did it doesn't matter. Once is enough to disqualify your argument. Especially when it's going to be the intro is the opening is the argument. That's not what an intro is supposed to be. They set it up wrong. Why can't people? It should be intro, opening, rebuttal to rebuttal. Then it should be rebuttal to that rebuttal and rebuttal to that rebuttal. Then it should be closing remarks and then Q&A. Oh, well, anyways, I don't know. It's just the format I prefer. So that's all I have for you. Hope thanks for watching. I see that chat had its own field day over the side. I was completely ignoring chat. So now if you're done at this point and you've listened to me talk this long, thank you for doing so. Do note that for whatever reason I don't understand, StreamYard/YouTube no longer imports your chat onto YouTube, so nobody but me and you get to see that, I guess. That's how that works now. Unless I put it on the screen. And I mean, I guess I could do that. I don't know. I mean, who's going to read it? I have no idea. Maybe somebody somewhere wants to read it. So, I don't know. Let's do that. Sure, why not? Okay, let's share the screen. Share the screen. No, I clicked on share. No, I did. What are you talking about? Sure. Yes, there. Sure. Okay, infinite regress. Okay, great. And then how do we make this bigger? Let's see. There we go. Oh, my goodness. Holy moly. Oh, it's so big. All right. Okay. All right. Here we go. Holy shit, it's so big. Okay, so here's. Okay, hopefully. Well, let's make me small. Let's see. Jeez. I'm screwing up. Oh, no, that's the wrong button. There we go. Okay, we'll make me small and make side chat bigger. And then hopefully that's big enough to read for people on YouTube later on if anyone wants to read it. I guess I could probably just copy paste it into YouTube. That could work. All right, here's all the posts. I guess somebody will have to slow this down, and read this later. So, I guess that's how we'll do that, so that people can read the comments in the chat. This is how I'm having to do it. Thanks, YouTube and StreamYard. This is your fault, YouTube/StreamYard. All right. There we go. Okay, well, oh, God. This isn't working. You know what? That was a bad idea. You know what? Oh, my God. Okay, look. Let's all pretend that Deconverted Man didn't do that and that I know what I'm doing. Okay? And that's just, yeah, let's just pretend that. That seems like a good way to end this. Great. Yeah, great exit. Yeah, I didn't script out this part. Oh, I scripted the other parts. That was fine. Then I went off script, and then all this happened. That's sad. Okay. See you next time, Finn.